Today, Bitcoin looks to snap a 3-week losing streak. Former FTX executive Ryan Salame forfeits more than $1 billion as part of a guilty plea in federal court. And Bakkt CEO Gavin Michael weighs in on recent crypto court rulings and how it impacts his business. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Tanea McKeel. Crypto assets are still limping along as the market suffers from low volatility and liquidity. Bitcoin up less than 1% at about $25,800, and Ether hovering below the flat line at $16.20 as of noon this Friday. Solana, the popular Ethereum alternative, also ticking slightly lower to $19.51. As we head into the weekend, however, Bitcoin is closing out the past 7 days by about 0.1% higher and breaking a 3-week losing streak, its worst 3-week period since the fall of Silvergate Capital in early March. It was down almost 13% in the last 3 weeks, and that's despite the many positive, though incremental, developments on both the regulatory and ETF fronts. Ether also on pace for a slight weekly gain that would snap its worst 3-week losing streak also since March. So a little positivity to cap the first full trading week in September, but crypto really paralleling other risk assets in the sense that low liquidity and uncertainty about a recession is keeping a lot of money on the sidelines. Okay, let's talk about some of the top stories. Ryan Salame, a former top executive at FTX, has pleaded guilty to campaign finance and money transmitting charges in federal court. On Thursday, Salame admitted to steering tens of millions of dollars to both Democrats and Republicans between the fall of 2021 and November 2022, which he claims were at the behest of Sam Bankman-Fried. At the time, those donations were made in Salame's name, but he says the money actually came from Alameda Research. As part of the plea, he will forfeit more than $1.5 billion to Massachusetts homes and a Porsche. He'll also pay $5 million to FTX debtors and $6 million in fines to the U.S. government. Salame could receive up to 10 years in prison when he faces sentencing, which is scheduled for March 6th of 2024. Next, Coinbase says it's putting its resources toward international expansion. CEO Brian Armstrong told our Kate Rooney in an interview on Thursday that the company isn't giving up on the U.S., but is looking abroad as regulation in the States remains uncertain.
But it's really good to see that 83% of G20 countries now either have crypto legislation in place or they've started the process. It's in progress. And so that's where we're investing our resources around international expansion this year. We just launched in Canada last month. We launched our international derivatives exchange the month before that. And so it's true the U.S. is a little bit of a laggard here, and that's not good for America. You know, I'm an American. We started the company in America. America's going to get this right. There's some really important bills going through the House right now that just got bipartisan support in the House committees. We're going to make sure America gets this right, but it is disappointing to see it lagging behind right now the rest of the G20.
That interview coincides with a blog post from the company on Wednesday, which praised the responsible development of crypto laws around the world and said it's prioritizing markets in Canada, Brazil, Singapore, and Australia, as well as Europe. In fact, Coinbase went so far as to say the EU is leading the way when it comes to regulation. The company said it was in the final stages of picking a location for its European headquarters. Well, speaking of crypto companies expanding abroad, digital asset platform Bakkt is another publicly traded company in the U.S. moving into markets with more regulatory clarity. For our main story, Crypto World's Talia Kaplan sat down with CEO Gavin Michael to discuss his expansion plans, the company's latest earnings report, and recent developments in crypto.
You're running a publicly traded crypto firm here in the U.S. amid a backdrop of a crackdown on crypto companies. In fact, back in June, the SEC sued 2 major crypto exchanges, Binance and Coinbase, which of course is also a publicly traded crypto firm here in America. But now we're seeing the SEC lose some of its cases. Just last week, the DC Court of Appeals sided with Grayscale, which sued the SEC over its denial for a plan to convert the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF. What was your reaction to that ruling, and does it mean anything for your business?
Yeah, look, great question. I think very positive. I mean, these ETF applications that we're seeing are really helping us drive participation into Bitcoin. It's bringing the possibility of new investors coming into the space through these ETF vehicles. I think the Grayscale victory ruling really helped motivate the industry. You saw that as we saw the impact across everything that was happening. For us, these Bitcoin ETFs are a great use case. It's a new use case in the market. It shows that we're moving beyond just simply trading and we're moving into more diversified use cases in the market. And when you think about what Bakkt does, we provide custody. We're a compliance first, regulatory first, risk-based company that is really focused on being best-in-class infrastructure for crypto companies. So when you think about these ETFs, they need to have storage. We provide the custody services to these ETF providers. So we like the use case, it increases the pie, it's positive for our business, and it's positive for the industry.
Now, the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF ruling comes after Ripple's partial win when a judge ruled that its native token, XRP, is not a security in some cases. What does that ruling, coupled with the Grayscale decision, signal to you? And how does it change the way you think about regulation here in America and how you can grow your business?
So I think one of the things we've been looking for and searching for is regulatory clarity here in the US. We're obviously seeing it happen in other markets around the world. And as that clarity comes, we see sentiment towards the crypto assets turn positive. I think here in the US, this is acting as a catalyst for action. If you think about recent legislation out of House Financial Services, you've started to see these findings act as a catalyst for that legislation to move forward. I was really happy that we saw the bills leave markup out of the HFS and start to enter the process of debate. So I think what we're seeing is a galvanizing of activity, both through the legislative process as well as through what the court activity, that is starting to lead to green shoots that there's a recognition that we need this comprehensive regulatory framework. And finally, we're seeing catalyst in the industry for this to actually occur.
How is Bakkt even operating amid the current regulatory landscape here in America?
So we operate under a New York Department of Financial Services Bank Trust Charter for our custody service. We have a BIT license here in New York, as well as money transmitter licenses in all the states that we need them in order to operate. We've always, since our founding, and we were founded out of the Intercontinental Exchange, we've had this compliance first, regulatory first culture in the company. So we have built the company in a way that is scalable, that is built to focus on maintaining this regulatory insight and maintaining the guardrails that the regulations give us. We operate a limited number of coins. You would have seen a while back, we delisted a number of tokens. That was us being proactive against the macro that we saw. When we delist a token, we take into account a number of factors, both regulatory, depth of liquidity in the market. We look at the way in which the coin was founded, all the things that we know the regulators are looking at as they start to assess different positions of the tokens. We took the decision to delist the tokens in order to be able to narrow our focus to a set of coins that we're comfortable trading in. So when you say, how do we operate by this rigorous listing standard, these rigorous processes in the way in which the business operates every day within that regulatory landscape that is set out for us by New York Department of Financial Services, together with the other state-based regulators.
You mentioned the delisting of tokens. So I'm wondering if the fact that those tokens were named as securities in those lawsuits against Binance and Coinbase had anything to do with your decision. And of course, it's important to note that other platforms also had similar moves, including Robinhood and Bitstamp. So you were not alone, but I'm wondering if it was because of those lawsuits and the fact that they were named as securities in that.
Yeah, look, it's part of the input, but we took action well in advance of those lawsuits coming out. So when we think about the platform that we operate, as I said, we take into account a number of factors. The other thing is that this isn't a one-way door. So we've delisted a number of tokens at the moment. As we see the regulatory clarity come in, as we see the macro change, there's always possibility of things coming back onto the platform. But keeping that tight guidance is important to us when you think about our ethos, our approach to the market, and the things that we're trying to be. We want to be that trusted partner that is allowing companies to come onto the crypto economy through our platform, whether that's custody, whether that's trading, or whether it's our on-ramps that allow fiat into the crypto space.
It's important to note that the delisting of those tokens happened a couple of months after the acquisition of trading infrastructure provider Apex Crypto happened. So I'm wondering if the delisting of those tokens impacted your bottom line, and if so, what are you doing to compensate for that loss?
So the volume of coins traded was quite small compared to our total business. So in terms of the economics, we haven't seen an adverse impact. The other thing we've seen is we've seen folks trade out of those tokens and into other crypto tokens, so they still maintain the exposure to the crypto space that they still wanted within their portfolios. You're quite right. It was done as part of the closing of the Apex crypto transaction. We're incredibly excited by that transaction as well. It's transformational for us. It's given us great partners on our platform like Webull, Public.com, Stash, M1 Finance are all part of our ecosystem through that acquisition. And that ecosystem has continued to grow. At Q2 earnings, we're announcing great names like Blockchain.com, Investor, Zayden. We're all part of the platform together with Swan Bitcoin. And that's all as a result of this new infrastructure that we acquired through Apex Crypto.
Your second quarter earnings revealed a quarterly loss of 19 cents a share. Mm-hmm. What is Bakkt doing to minimize expenses in an effort to improve profit margins?
Yeah, well, look, we've taken a lot of actions through the course of this year on more prudent expense management, on strategic capital allocation within the company. The company went public via a de-SPAC in October of 2021. At that point, we had a lot of build to do. Last year was a big investment year for us, both in terms of the platform as well as the broader capabilities for the company. This year, we're leveraging the investments from previous year in the way in which we're in the market today. So as you think about our expense base, you would naturally see that expense base start to fall as we leverage investments from previous years. Obviously, we continue to be very focused on product market fit, on making sure that the investments that we're making are really driving the top line growth the way we expect to. And I think we also said in Q2 earnings that our cash flow, our cash usage in the second half is 70% of what it was in the first half. It's just showing that we are bringing the reductions down and seeing the benefits of the actions that we took in the first half pay dividends in the second half.
I listened to your second quarter earnings call and you did outline your international expansion plans. You noted that Latin America expansion will happen in Q4 of this year, followed by the UK, markets in the European Union, Hong Kong, and Australia. But I'm wondering why those specific markets. I know you mentioned regulatory clarity. I'm sure the fact that there's a lack of regulatory clarity here in the US and regulatory advancements abroad has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's simply that those markets have strong regulatory clarity. Consumer sentiment has swung positive as a result of that. And the partners that we work with are all looking to take advantage of that growth. When we talk about Latin America, we announced IBEX at Q2 earnings. We expect them to be live in the fourth quarter. That'll be our first entrance into LATAM. And then we have other opportunities that we hope to be able to talk to in the near future that will take us into the other markets. But it's driven by the fact that those markets have the regulatory clarity that we're looking for. And as I said earlier, our objective is to be compliance first, reg first, and we're not changing that as we move the company into these new markets.
Gavin Michael also discusses what prompted the discontinuation of Bakkt's consumer app and what's next for the company. You'll be able to check out that full interview at cnbc.com/cryptoworld. Okay, that's all for Crypto World this week. We'll be back again on Monday, and we'll see you then.